Okay, so this is part two. Let me continue where I left off. We had just moved to Bethel. I was about age 5. I had to be in the late 70s at some point, like 77-ish. Um, so throughout the 70s, okay, so they get married in 70. Um, I might have a picture of that. I don't know if I'll be able to show it on this Zoom here, but this is one picture. It might be floating around on my mom's Facebook, but this is a picture of them. I'm assuming this is their wedding day, 1970. So that's a nice picture. And I was born in, actually, I should say before that, my 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 parents did have a stillborn. My sister and I did have an older brother. Um, so I mean, I never knew, but my older brother was a stillborn, and my 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 father was he donated um, I guess my older brother to research. Um, so, so I did have an older brother. I presume that was born somewhere between 1970, 71, somewhere around there. Um, but anyway, so I was born in 72 in January, and then my sister, of course, in 1974 in July. Um, we grew up. I don't remember much in our walk, but we grew up in Bethel, Connecticut, till I was 18. So that's about 1990. Um, and I think my sister graduated in 93. Um, I went to school up in Massachusetts. My sister was in the Bethel area. My parents had moved to Florida for a variety of reasons. Part of it, Connecticut just became too expensive to live there due to due to the income taxes rising and recession and so forth. And my father had, he got injured, so I think he hurt his shoulder. Could be wrong on that. Um, and I know there's some trouble finding, getting a job or whatever. I was at college, so I only know bits and pieces. Um, they ended up losing their house, going bankrupt. So that's how we ended up in Florida. Um, they came here literally with nothing. My father moved here in '92. Um, after I think it was after Hurricane Andrew. If I have that date correct. I know it was the year Andrew hit, and he came just after it hit, and then my mom came um, around that same time. She moved down like January 1st or somewhere early in January. Um, so that's how we ended up in Florida. Um, they had nothing. I remember visiting. They had two beach chairs, a small little like 13-inch TV. They lived down off Davis Boulevard, and they didn't have much of anything. But my father, my father had a job, and they were on their way to really starting over. And I know that was a tough thing to do, starting over after all those years, and it's scary. Um, with everything going on now in our world and the economy and everything, you just have to wonder, will you ever be in that same situation? I sure hope not. But so anyway, let me move on with it. So my father, he did work for somebody for a few years, but then he decided he wanted to start his own business. So he went to start a business called Auto Care of Naples off of Shirley Street. I think the actual street name was Elsa. Um, and he did pretty well. I talked about this in my last video, so I'm not going to repeat myself. But so he worked there for quite a many years until 2000. I want to say 18. So he started having issues. So he decided that it was time to maybe move on from the business, and he started working part time, not part time, but for someone else. Um, I don't think he particularly liked working for other people at that point. But one second. All right. 2018. So the lung cancer. Like many people, he went to the doctor and ended up finding a spot on his lung, and so that was the first sign of his illness. 2018-ish. Found out, spread to his esophagus, so that was obviously an issue. We got him up to Moffitt up in the Tampa area, which I mean, they were awesome. Can't say enough about them. They were great. It was a long trip, but you know, it was worth it. From here to there is probably about 2 hour drive, and we did it quite frequently. He ended up having surgery there, so he had his upper right lobe removed from his lung. He had a scoop of, I say a scoop because that's how they described it, a scoop of his some cells, I guess, near his esophagus removed, or in his esophagus or something. Then, of course, he went on for radiation and chemo after that, and I think he might have had several go arounds with chemo. I can't remember exactly. I just remember him going. I also remember him working through it. He hadn't stopped working at that point. He became cancer free. The radiation did leave issues on his esophagus, so he struggled with that a lot. Eating was painful. His esophagus had narrowed, so he was having trouble with a lot of things. So that was that was a little bit of a battle going through that, and I know he was not happy about it at all. You know, he liked to eat, loved his sweets. um, but you know, got through that. I mean, it never really went away. It just got worse. He had to drink this numbing thing, or this special concoction before he ate certain things that would help things go down easier. So anyway, cancer free. Esophagus he had issues with, but then the COPD came and got worse and worse. Okay, so COPD, it worsened. I talked about cycles. He went through this cycle of in and out of the hospital, and it got more frequent and so forth. So what would happen was he'd have, and I know there's aspirations and there's exasperations and so forth. I get them confused, so please forgive me if you're in that field of pulmonology. What I do know is that because of the narrowing of the esophagus, he would liquids and food and so forth wouldn't necessarily go down his esophagus the way it's supposed to, so it would go down the wrong pipe, so to speak, and so it ended up in his lungs and so forth. So he had some really heavy chest congestion. I mean, it sounded like, and I hate, I never did drugs, but I knew people, but the bongs and that sound it makes, the bubbling, that's what he sounded like really loud, especially when he was really bad. So so what they would end up doing is every so often, every, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 weeks, he'd go in, I call it vacuum out. They'd go in his lungs and they'd clear him out, and he'd sound good for a little while, and of course it'd get bad again, and he'd go back in the hospital. So this happened over and over and over again, and he was on tons of medicine for it, and it causes aspirations, and that stuff in your lungs causes congestive heart failure, which he had often. Usually every time he went in the hospital, it was that. He battled MRSA quite a bit, which, if you don't know, is highly contagious. So we would have to wear those like spacesuits and everything and gloves and crap whenever we went in there. And then, what was the other thing? Oh, pneumonia, which never ever seemed to go away. Those are all the result of this issue with COPD. And every time you have one of these aspirations, it damages and weakens your lungs. And it just damages, and it continues to do so as the years go on and the more you have them. So anyway, that's how pretty much how the last couple of years went. I do want to touch on a few things. So here's some of his medicine. This is what he was taking. We got 4 bottles of medicine in here that he used to take. I want you to put yourselves in his shoes, and trying to remember how to take all this stuff and when to take them. Because from his perspective, he's sitting doing nothing all the time. There's no concept of time. He doesn't remember. You'd have, his memory wasn't so great, especially if the oxygen was low. But I mean, this was an ongoing battle of medication compliance. Here's another one you used to have to take 1 time per day at 7:30. You can't really see it, but this is his green medicine. This is inhaled through a nebulizer. Here is another one. This is just saline. You can't really see it through here, but maybe if I got in front of it, there we go. So that was twice a day. So we had that. And we had Brovana. Let's see if I get in front of this one. So 2 times a day, also inhaled. And then we had that over there. Budesonide, 2 times per day, 10 and 8. And we had that one. I'm going to move these. Okay. And then we had, I'm almost done. Trust me. Deal with me for a minute. Painting a picture. It's the most important medication. It's called Duoneb, if I can get it on camera. Okay, it's a combination. This is actually his red pill. This is also inhaled 4 times a day on good days. If you had a bad day with that congestion, it's up to 6 times. So I have to figure out a way to get rid of all this stuff. Probably going to drop it at the local fire department, my guess. That's the proper disposal procedure these days. Try to get that there without it falling. So we're at 14 minutes and 40 seconds. I'm actually going to stop the video, and we'll have a part 3. So see you in a minute.